right. This is Commercial Real Estate Investing 101. If you're not sure what class you just logged into, I am recording today's class. So if you miss anything or have to jump off, I will email you the link to the recording later today. Thanks again for being here. A little bit about me. I'm a commercial real estate broker licensed in Oregon and Washington. I live in Vancouver. And I personally have been investing in real estate since 2011 and came to this business 5 years ago after 15 years in local government. And last year sold or leased over $36 million in volume and about 500,000 square feet of commercial space, which I think I did the math one time was like 7 or 8 football fields. So last year was a good year. On track this year for another good year, just so you know that I'm not somebody talking at you trying to sell you a product or a service. I'm just trying to provide some information about how to get started on the commercial side of investing. You probably already know I'm a commercial real estate broker. I'm not an attorney or a CPA, so I don't give any tax advice. I'm just sharing my knowledge and experience if this is something that is of interest to you to get into the commercial side of investing. Most people start out on the residential side and then aren't really sure what to do from there. And as I mentioned, I am recording today's session. Today, I promise I will have you out of here again by 9:30. We're going to talk about some different types of asset classes you can invest in, how to finance some of those things, some things to think about, to be careful about, then how to get started in the process, and then we'll have a few minutes for some Q&A at the end if you want. Otherwise, I'll have my information at the end of the video, and you can hit me up later if you have some more specific questions. So in the chat, if you could just put A, B, C, or D, just so I kind of know, Christy and Matt, what you're here for. Are you thinking about your first purchase as just income property as an investment? Are you looking to maybe buy just a standalone building for yourself as for your business? Are you thinking about buying something for your business with some other tenants that also could help you generate cash flow? Or are you thinking about just buying some land and doing something else with it? If you could just put that in the chat so I kind of know, I'll spend more time on those things. Okay, so income property and then multi-tenant. Okay, thank you. Perfect. We'll be sure to spend some time on those items. Appreciate that. So again, there's several different types of property types in commercial real estate that sometimes people don't always realize are considered commercial. When I talk about commercial, I'm generally referring to that because that's how it's going to get financed through a commercial loan or an avenue that maybe is not what is happening in the residential market, where you can find a house and in 30 days generally be in the house. So things take a little bit of time, a lot longer in commercial than they do on the residential side of the business. So these are different types of asset classes we're going to talk about a little bit. And then again, I will go into some more detail. So anything in multifamily can be anything as small from 2 to 4 units, a duplex, triplex, fourplex, that you can get residential financing for. So those are, again, you could probably close on those relatively quickly, 25% down, relatively cut and dry. A residential lender can do that type of financing. Anything more than 5 units, even if it's owner occupied, is considered commercial financing. That is going to probably take you at least 60 to 90 days to close on. And you may or may not need most likely going to need more than 25% down. But that's kind of what we're talking about when it comes to multifamily. It's the only category that you kind of have maybe some different options of how you're going to obtain financing. But that's when I talk about multifamily, that's what I'm talking about. Office space, office buildings. You can either buy a standalone office building for your business or as an investment and use it as an owner user, or a multi-tenant office building where, again, maybe you are occupying one of the suites, but you're leasing out the other spaces, or you're not doing any of that at all and you just are have an office building where you're just generating cash flow from the property. We all know what retail is. You can have a standalone retail building, maybe just a furniture building where it's just more of like a warehouse type space, but retail where they're a large or a small retail building that's standalone, or a strip mall or something like that where you have multi-tenant opportunities. And then industrial. So in this classification, we look at anything from like warehouse space to a flex space, kind of similar flex space. Maybe walls are a little bit more movable than in an industrial warehouse type space. This is one of the hottest asset classes across the country right now, certainly in the Portland metro area. Very, very difficult to find industrial space, whether a standalone or even multi-tenant, and you're going to pay a pretty penny online shopping has just made this asset go through the roof. So that is a little bit about industrial. And then if you're, thinking about hospitality, maybe that's the way you want to go. You want to own a hotel, maybe have a management company run it. You want to own a restaurant building, maybe start your own restaurant and own the building that you're operating out of. And this could also include anything from resorts to golf courses. So lots of opportunities in hospitality. Typically people get into hospitality, they kind of specialize. That's their sweet spot. And I'm working with a client right now as 26 hotels up and down the Oregon and Washington coast. And so obviously that's what he specializes in. That's the industry that he knows. So this is an area to consider if that's something that might be of interest to you. And then land. So you can do a few things with land, anything from maybe you want to start a nursery or a vineyard or something along those lines that maybe you're not going to start. Maybe you're going to lease out the land to somebody else, or maybe you're going to start it with the intention of going ahead and selling it. You can just buy and hold the land. Of course, it's not generating any cash for you. You could buy and build something on the land, increase the value, and then go ahead and sell that. Or you can take maybe a larger piece of land and then partition it. And oftentimes those parts are worth more than the whole. But of course, you've got holding costs and time dealing with government agencies and things like that to go through that process. But there are people that do that, bring some value add, and can generate some more money. Another very, very hot asset class on the market right now is anything to do with storage. I thought during the recession, everybody got rid of everything in 2008. Apparently, we bought it all back with COVID and all of that. So everything from, building it and, turning around and selling it or buying and holding it. There is a really, really hot demand right now for anything to do with storage, whether it's of stuff or vehicles or toys, things like that. Very, very active asset area. And then lots of people are interested in manufactured home parks. If you don't know, typically you own the land as the property owner, and the tenants, own their individual manufactured home, but they don't own the lot. So they're paying a lot rent. So again, this is an opportunity where maybe you look at building something or buying an existing one and then just holding it, and you're just generating the cash through the ongoing increases for the lot rents. So something to consider when people want to get into commercial real estate is they're often not sure how to get started with financing. Again, it's a little bit different going through the process than if you have bought a house before. It's pretty cut and dry. You're sending in information versus what a commercial lender is going to go through. And so I'm going to talk about some of these options that are out there that you might be able to pursue as you're looking at your first investment. So if you're thinking about getting a conventional commercial loan and you're just going to walk into US Bank, First Citizens Bank, B of A, Wells Fargo, any of those banks, any credit union, one of the things I always tell people is that you should speak to at least 3 to 5 lenders as you're going through this process, because every lender has their own criteria. And this is something that the industry doesn't really tell you. It's, if you're looking to buy a house, they have strict guidelines that they have to follow. But when it comes to commercial, banks are reevaluating their portfolios just about every quarter. So one quarter, they might decide that they're really trying to get into the retail space. And the next quarter, they might realize their portfolio is too heavy in the retail space and they don't want to lend on that. And you as the borrower might be going through this process and have 4 banks deny you and 1 bank approve you. And it has nothing to do with your cash in the bank, whether you have the down, the property itself. That's just not what they're lending on right now. And unfortunately, as a consumer, you don't know that. So you're going through the process only to find out it's not something that's going to work. Or they're going to charge you an egregious interest rate that you're like, well, this other bank's not going to do that for me. And again, they're not going to tell you why, but I always encourage people to take the time, spend a day to talk to the lenders, do those applications, because it really could be in your best interest. Not all lenders are equal, and I really can't reiterate that enough. And I didn't understand that till I got in the business. But even personally, I've experienced that. So you just really need to make sure that you take the time so that you are getting what's best for you as the borrower. And oftentimes you're looking at, on a conventional loan, anywhere from 20 to 40% down. So again, varies with the lender and what they perceive as the risk or what they want in their portfolio. So you could go to one bank, they're going to tell you, they're going to need 60% down because they really don't want it in their portfolio. You can go to another bank and they're going to tell you 25% down. So do your homework, make sure that you're spending that time, even though it can be really time consuming. And I tell people, oh my gosh, it takes so much time. Yes, it takes time, but if you have 2 denials and 1 approval, then wasn't that worth the time? So that is what a traditional, conventional commercial loan. You're just going to talk to a credit union, a bank, somebody that's going to kind of walk you through that process. Another option for financing is owner will carry. This is much more common in commercial real estate than it is in residential real estate. However, obviously the seller has to agree to carry the note, and not all sellers will agree to do that. Typically, you'll have a balloon payment, so you're going to be paying the owner for 5 years. And then in 5 years, you're still going to have to go get a loan or sell it or do something with it. So it's not like they're going to carry that note for you for 15, 20 years. You still need to have some exit strategy or plan. And you're going to pay a little bit of a premium for that as well. Maybe a little bit of a higher interest rate than you would get at a bank or a credit union. But it's quick and easy. You can just kind of plug and play, negotiate with a private party versus going through the bank process. Oftentimes you won't even spend the money on appraisal if they're going to carry. So it can close a little bit faster than you could if you were going to go through a conventional loan. SBA loans. So SBA loans, if you are looking to occupy a property, this is when SBA comes into play. So banks are kind of the arm of the SBA that are doing the lending, and you as the owner occupied can come in with as little as 10% down. You're typically going to have a little bit of a lower interest rate, but the caveat is you have to occupy at least 51% of the building. So you can't buy a multi-tenant building and you're only going to occupy a quarter of it for 10% down. You still need to be really operating out of that location. And of course, you have to have a history as a business owner. A new business is not going to qualify for SBA. And obviously you need to be having the cash and the cash flow in your business to be able to qualify for SBA. And then, a little known fact is if you are a veteran, there are SBA VA loans. Not all lenders do those, but those are some another avenue for folks that might qualify under. And then hard money, there is an option that if you are just trying to get into something, close quickly, and have some cash, and for whatever reason, you're just trying to get something done quickly. Hard money is always an option. You're obviously going to pay a premium for a quick close and getting that cash, and you're going to pay more at a down. But this is an option for some people that for whatever reason, you're trying to get into something, the banks are taking too long, you just need to get in there and get closed, or you're going to lose the opportunity. Hard money is certainly an option out there for commercial. So some of the things that you might want to consider when you go and talk to a lender of any type, whether it's the hard money or whether it's just a traditional lender or credit union, is what kind of down payment are you going to need? Again, that's going to vary on the different asset classes, whether you're going to own or occupy. But that could be the difference between you choosing lender A and lender B. The interest rate, you want to make sure that you understand what the interest rate is. And then how long is that loan going to be amortized over? What's the term and the length? So typically commercial loans are not like residential loans where you're getting a 15 or 30-year note. You will have a shorter term where you're going to be forced to refinance. And so you want to make sure, when is that readjustment period? Are you going to have to refi, or are they just adjusting the interest rate? So you want to make sure you understand that before you sign the loan documents, so you know what you're getting into. And then if you win the lottery or a nice inheritance and you want to pay off the property and you want to do that, then you want to know what your prepayment penalties are. So these are some questions that you just want to make sure that you understand, because again, not all lenders are created equal. So, if you want to have a spreadsheet or some way to track all that information, these are some questions that you might want to consider asking. So you're thinking, this sounds awesome. What am I supposed to do? How do I get started from here? I'm ready to go. I've got some cash in the bank. So the most important thing is, just like anything else, you want to find a team. You can go out and do things on your own, but just like when you buy a house, the listing broker is representing the seller and not the buyer. And so have some representation is really important, whether it's me or somebody else. They're working for you. And so having that is really helpful especially as a first-time investor. You want to make sure that if you're making an offer on something, that the pricing is appropriate. You want to find a team. Again, talk about the lending. What are your options? Maybe already have those 3 banks that you've been in communication with. even if you haven't identified the property, just because you want to make sure that you know what you're doing when you get started, or at least that the broker can point you in the right direction. And then depending on the situation and what you're trying to do, maybe you want a commercial contractor on your team. Maybe you're going to find this great building that just needs a complete rehab, or the offices aren't set up for your business. And so you're going to have to do some work even after you close. It's still not going to be move-in ready. And maybe that also needs to be packaged into your loan, that you're going to need some construction costs as part of the process after you close. And if you're just looking to invest and not owner occupy, the number one thing is just start writing offers and taking action. I could talk to them blue in the face. You could go read all the, commercial real estate investing for dummies and YouTube videos and all of that stuff. But at the end of the day, sitting around and not doing anything isn't really going to get you any farther in your portfolio. So what are some of the things that get people in trouble when they want to get started with commercial real estate? Just like anything else in this world, if you don't have good credit, it makes it really, really difficult. And, lenders are going to see you as a higher risk. And that's maybe something that they're not going to want to loan on. Buying in rural areas can be tough. I've had clients try to do that, and we really struggled trying to find a lender, and we ended up using a commercial broker that found a lender in the Midwest. And I would also add to that if you don't already own a home, some lenders will see you as a risk, because if something were to happen in your financial picture, most likely you would walk away from your commercial investment before you would your home. And so if you don't have a home, now it's even easier for you to walk away from the investment if something goes wrong. So something to think about in terms of what other debt and assets that you have. And then not understanding how to evaluate a property. A lot of people don't really understand how commercial is done, and they want to run comps and look at other building sales. And that's not how we price in commercial. So really trying to understand how buildings are priced is really important, and working with a broker that explain that to you and do that math for you, and show you how it's done, because you can't just look on Zillow and be like, oh, this is the price of what this building should be. That's not how it works in commercial. So just making sure you understand what you're getting yourself into. Something else is your timing. So if you're trying to get out of a lease and purchase your building for your business, making sure that you understand things can take a really long time. We really can't close with a conventional lender in less than 90 days. At least in our area, we're 4 to 6 weeks out for a commercial appraisal. That's just the appraisal part, not including a 30-day inspection period or doing any other environmental tests or anything like that. So everything in commercial takes a lot longer than you think it should, including finding the property. You might be looking for a while before you even find things. Commercial just doesn't always come up on the market as frequently as, on average, people move houses every 5 to 7 years. That's not the case in commercial. And so you just want to make sure you have enough time. Making sure that the property is zoned for your use and what you want to do. You don't want to end up buying an office building that you're going to sell retail out of, and then find out that it's not zoned for that, and end up in a lot of trouble with the city or the county, and trying to negotiate that. Going through zone changes and things like that can be very expensive and time consuming. And so you just want to make sure that the buildings or the property is going to allow you to do what you want to do, and making sure you understand those zoning codes. Or if it's not zoned for that, going through the process and getting that done, because you also don't want to necessarily close on something that you still can't operate out of. So if you are looking for a property, could you just put in the chat which letter here you might be thinking about purchasing, whether it's office, retail, multifamily, warehouse, what kind of is of interest to you? That would be helpful, and you can just drop that in the chat there. And then that would be great. Let's see. Give you guys a couple of seconds here. And if you have more than one asset class, that's fine. So John, you're looking at mini storage. Okay, office and multifamily. Thanks, Jenny. Some land. Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. That really helps. Let's see. So common questions. How are you going to analyze whether this property is going to be good for you if it's an investment, not owner occupied? Even if it's owner occupied, it still needs to make sense for your business and what your long-term goals are in your business. But some of the things that different investors look at different things. What's your cash on cash return? Are you looking at improving the value and selling it? That's what a lot of folks do in multifamily. They want a fixer. They want to fix up all the apartments and then turn around and sell it. They want to, maybe people are just looking at a cap rate And a lot of people think a cap rate is what their return rate is. That's not the case. But there's lots of different numbers you can measure whether an investment is a good deal or not, or not deal, but whether it makes sense for your portfolio and what you're trying to do. And so you just want to make sure that you understand, again, are you purchasing this for your owner occupied use, or are you looking at just having tenants? And those scenarios are obviously different. You're going to have different rates and things like that. But so some questions that you might want to be thinking about for yourself as you go through this process. So some things you might be thinking about right now: should you call me or any other commercial broker, even if you have no money? And I know a lot of people would say no, because they might think that it's a waste of time. But if you don't know where you're going, you got to kind of start. You don't know where you've been, then you don't know where you're going. And so if you already know maybe you don't have enough money, but you know what you're thinking about looking at doing, we certainly can have a conversation about what you might need to do to get there, or some other approaches. Maybe start doing some other smaller investing and turning those properties over until you can get to where you want to go. Do you want to hire a property manager, or do you want to do it yourself? Again, maybe it depends on where it's located. Maybe it's really far from your house. Maybe you don't want the hassle and you want to take it on yourself. You want to learn, or you're ready just to outsource it. So something to think about. There's obviously extra costs associated if you have a property manager. Do you want an easy investment, long-term tenants, long-term leases with a lower return? Or do you want to do something like co-working office space where you're only signing year leases, you're generating more money per square foot, but you've got a lot of turnover and you're managing those tenants that are moving in and out with their co-working space? So just some things to think about as you're trying to figure out what you might want to be doing with your space. So where do I get started? Well, maybe after we have a call or you do some other research, some of you have already know what you're looking to invest in. You obviously need to determine your budget. What do you have down, and understand where you're at financially, and then put together that team that I talked about. And then again, taking action. At the end of the day, none of this matters if you don't decide to do anything. When I first got started in investing, I was on the residential side, and every investor meeting I would go to, that was the bottom line: is just start writing offers, just start doing it, because you can plan and hope to learn everything and know everything before you get started. But the reality of it is that's not the case. You're only going to learn by doing it, maybe making some mistakes, and honing your approach and getting better. With that, I thank you for your time this morning. We ended a little early, so I'm going to stay on for any questions. You can either put them in the chat. You can ask if you don't want to do any of that. Here's my contact information. You can text, call, or email me. I'm happy to answer any questions or set up a time where we can talk more in depth. But I do appreciate your time this morning, and I will be sure to email you the video of the class. So if you had any questions or want to review anything, you will have that later today or tomorrow. So thanks, Liz. Appreciate you joining this morning. And again, if you don't have any questions, feel free to log off. If you have questions, I'm happy to stick around.
Thank you, Andy. It was nice seeing you.
Nice Vista house back there, John. I couldn't see you before. So Jenny, you want to know how to work more in the industry? Feel free to give me a call or shoot me a text. I'm happy to chat about that, just so I could get a little bit of background on where you're coming from, if you're already in the industry or not. It really, I hate it when people say this, but it really depends on where you already are and where you're trying to be in commercial. And so I'm happy to have a conversation with you offline if you follow up with me. Thank you, Renee. Appreciate you joining, hopping on. I gotta see how many folks are sticking around. And again, if you have questions, feel free. If you don't, you got an extra 6 minutes back in your day. But I do appreciate you being here this morning. All right, not seeing a whole slew of questions. Again, here's my contact information. Please do not hesitate to reach out. I appreciate you being here. I will send out the video, probably be today or tomorrow. Appreciate your time, and I hope you have a great rest of the day. Oh, Bar, you just popped in. With inventory tight, can you talk briefly about construction? Sure, commercial construction. The big thing about commercial construction is finding the land for the property that you want. I have a lot of clients in that industrial space, and we can't even find the industrial zone land for them to build. So inventory, again, depending on what type of asset class you're looking at to build, is really tough. And just like in the residential space, there's just not enough contractors. So, everything takes way longer than you think, even if you're going to build. If you're looking at buying some land and going through the permitting process, again, depending on which county, but I would plan on from, start to process at least 18 to 24 plus months. Even if you identified the property, just to go through all the process of getting design, permits, getting those contractors till you're going to be open. So for some folks, myself included, that is a really, really long time and a lot of cash you're expending to get where you're going. So, if we can find something that's already up and running for what you're looking to do, especially if you're a first time or early investor, that's usually the way I steer people, because building is just so can be cost prohibitive and time prohibitive for what you might want to do. Thanks for that question, Bar. That was good. Thanks, Jenny. I'm glad this was helpful for you. Again, feel free to give me a call. All right. If you're in the Vancouver area, there's a real estate investors network meeting today. Bar is posting in the chat. I think you can find it on Facebook if you want some more information for that. So, well, thank you all so much for being here. Again, I appreciate your time, and please don't hesitate to reach out any questions. Have a great rest of the day, and hope to see you soon.